Welcome back to Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm having so much fun playing this game. It's easily become one of my favorite RPGs ever made, if not one of. It's easily become probably my favorite RPG. It just keeps getting better and better, and the more you play it, the better it gets. So let's just get into it. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoy the gameplay. Peace.
The Magister needs more power for his rituals.
No! Don't hurt me, Linnea. Why does everything they do with magic have to be so creepy?
The breach, it's...
Everywhere. Shit. You can fit a lot of demons through that thing.
What became of Felix? Do you know?
Yes. I know.
And you're not going to tell me?
You'll find out soon enough.
Main hall. Alexius is close.
What in Andraste's name is that? Hold on to it. I want to look at it later. Damage did Alexius' spell do?
Rifts tore apart all of southern Thedas, starting here. But whether that's his doing or the breach, who can say?
should try to find another way in. Get that enchanter!
Andraste have mercy on your souls. No one else will.
What happened here?
Find Alexius. That's all that matters.
Maybe just a couple of those pronged helmets.
Breath. Where did Alexius find this? How did he even move it here?
Can we open it?
Perhaps. But it looks quite strong. How desperate and paranoid must he be? His servants must have a way through. He has to eat. Let's look around. Block the stairs! Let's try to take them by surprise. The Elder One is interested in saving his followers. Let's head back to the main hall. I think I know how we'll open that door.
Alexius, it's time to answer for your crimes.
And here you are, finally. I knew you would appear again. Not that it would be now, but I knew I hadn't destroyed you. My final failure.
Was it worth it? Everything you did to the world, to yourself.
It doesn't matter now. All we can do is wait for the end.
What do you mean? What's ending?
The irony that you should appear now, of all the possibilities. All that I fought for, all that I betrayed, and what have I wrought? Ruin and death, that is nothing else. The Elder One comes for me, for you, for us all. Felix.
That's Felix. Maker's breath, Alexius. What have you done?
He would have died, Dorian. I saved him. Please, don't hurt my son. I'll do anything you ask.
Hand over the amulet and we let him go.
Let him go and I swear you'll get what you want.
I want the world back.
No. No!
I gave you the world! It is impossible. The Elder One will destroy us both.
I'm falling back!
Victory is impossible. The Elder One will destroy us both. Impossible. The Elder One will destroy us both. Where are your assassins this time? Victory is impossible. The Elder One will destroy. wanted to die, didn't he? All those lies he told himself, the justifications. He lost Felix long ago. Didn't even notice. Oh, Alexius.
How do we reverse the spell?
This is the same amulet he used before. I think it's the same one we made in Minrathous. That's a relief. Give me an hour to work out the spell he used, and I should be able to reopen the rift.
An hour? That's impossible! You must go now! The Elder One.
Was wondering when he'd show. We'll head out front. Keep them off your tail.
No, I won't let you commit suicide.
Look at us. We're already dead. The only way we live is if this day never comes. Cast your spell. You have as much time as I have arrows. Though darkness closes, I am shielded by flame. Andraste, guide me. Maker, take me to your side.
You move, and we all die! You'll have to do better than that.
Put aside all claim to Redcliffe and we let you live.
You won. There is no point extending this charade. Felix.
It's going to be all right, Father.
You'll die.
Everyone dies.
Well, I'm glad that's over with. Or not.
Grand Enchanter, we'd like to discuss your abuse of our hospitality.
Your Majesties.
When we offered the Mage's Sanctuary, we did not give them the right to drive our people from their homes.
King Alistair, Queen Anora, I assure you, we never intended...
In light of your actions, good intentions are no longer enough.
You and your followers have worn out your welcome. Leave Ferelden, or we'll be forced to make you leave.
But we have hundreds who need protection. Where will we go?
You'll be leaving here with the Inquisition.
And what are the terms of this arrangement?
Hopefully better than what Alexius gave you. The Inquisition is better than that, yes?
I know you are a mage, but consider how these rebels have acted. They must be conscripted, not coddled.
It seems we have little choice but to accept whatever you offer.
We would be honored to have you fight as allies at the Inquisition's side.
We'll discuss this later.
I'll pray that the rest of the Inquisition honors your promise then.
The breach threatens all of Thedas. We cannot afford to be divided now. We can't fight it without you. Any chance of success requires your full support.
It's a generous offer. I doubt you're going to get a better one from us.
We accept. It would be madness not to. I will gather my people and ready them for the journey to Haven. The breach will be closed. You will not regret giving us this choice.
It's not a matter for debate. There will be abominations among the mages, and we must be prepared.
If we rescind the offer of an alliance, it makes the Inquisition appear incompetent at best, tyrannical at worst.
What were you thinking, turning mages loose with no oversight? The veil is torn open.
We need them to close the breach. It's not going to work if we make enemies of them.
I know we need them for the breach, but they could do as much damage as the demons themselves. You were there, Seeker. Why didn't you intervene?
While I may not completely agree with the decision, I support it. The sole point of the Herald's mission was to gain the mage's aid, and that was accomplished.
The voice of pragmatism speaks. And here I was, just starting to enjoy the circular arguments.
Closing the breach is all that matters.
I got a taste of the consequences if we fail. Let's make sure we don't.
We will not fail.
We should look into the things you saw in this dark future. The assassination of Empress Celine. A demon army.
Sounds like something a Tevinter cult might do. Orlais falls, the Imperium rises. Chaos for everyone. One battle at a time. It's going to take time to organize our troops and the mage recruits. Let's take this to the war room. Join us. None of this means anything without your mark, after all.
Thank you. I'd be honored to help with the plan.
Meet us there when you're ready.
I'll skip the War Council, but I would like to see this breach up close, if you don't mind.
Then you're staying?
Oh, didn't I mention? The South is so charming and rustic. I adore it to little pieces.
There's no one I'd rather be stranded in time with, future or present.
Excellent choice. But let's not get stranded again anytime soon, yes? I'll begin preparations to march on the summit. Make a willing, the mages will be enough to grant us victory.
good to be surrounded by mages again. Really?
The breach is a magical problem. The mages will help us solve it.
I don't understand. I thought the Chant of Light bound us all together.
Come to me, child, and I shall embrace you. In my arms lies eternity.
The Inquisition appreciates your assistance in this matter, Lady Corbin.
And my miners appreciate your business. You'll have your lyrium by the end of the week. I should tell you, Ambassador, the Chantry raised some fuss when they learned about our arrangement.
The Inquisition must certainly seem an audacious idea to the Grand Clerics. We hope to convince them it is a necessary one as well.
I'll take my leave. Good day.
Who is she, Ambassador?
A merchant. I thought we should reach out to the dwarves to secure lyrium for the Inquisition's mages. According to Lady Corbin, it raised the ire of the Chantry.
How?
Access to lyrium makes us rather more formidable than anticipated. We're becoming a challenge. Sadly, the remaining Grand Clerics appear to be consolidating the Chantry's power, instead of comforting the masses.
The Chantry couldn't solve its own problems when it had a divine.
Yet many people continue to bear it great love. We will not benefit from its decline. Little but the Chantry ties Orlais, Nevarra, Ferelden, Antiva, and even Rivain to a common cause.
Has the Chantry truly promoted such peace?
Andraste's chant is familiar across kingdoms, a source of many shared customs. That is the crucial point. Common ground is the start of all negotiations.
I suppose a shared faith can be useful when talking with strangers.
Precisely. And these similar interests are merely where we begin. We must learn to think beyond our own wants to secure peace in Thedas.
How did someone so lovely and selfless go into Orlesian politics, Lady Montelier?
Well, that is, really, you give me too much credit. While you're here, I do have a question. The remaining Grand Clerics sent a missive inquiring about the events at the Temple of Sacred Ashes. They demand to know whether the Inquisition officially claims that Andraste saved you from the breach. If it were up to you, how would you reply?
Will my answer change your reply to the Chantry?
If Leliana, Cassandra, Cullen, and I could agree on our official stance, I could answer that. We should decide soon. The revered mothers don't seem to know what to make of you.
I'd tell the Chantry that Andraste herself shielded me from harm.
I'd truly like to hear the debates that would raise in Val Royeaux. Thank you for your thoughts. A good day to you. What may I do for you?
What do the people make of us?
We've gathered many favors among the nobility. They will be gently reminded of this.
Any visiting dignitaries I should watch out for?
Lady Drummond promised a visit. She has useful resources if we can get her to set aside her games.
What are her politics?
Oh, no, I meant actual games. Chess, cards, dice, little boards with carved idols from Tevinter. She made me play that with her for 8 hours once. Steer her towards cards, if she insists on a match. What may I do for you?
What do the people make of us?
We've gathered many favors among the nobility. They will be gently reminded of this.
Any thoughts on the people here?
Who did you mean?
You must have an opinion of Dorian.
Who hasn't? The man could cause a scene standing quietly in the center of an empty room. Still, I do believe he has your best interest at heart, for all that he delights in mocking them from time to time.
What's your impression of Solus?
I suppose I should be wary of an apostate, but our elven mage has conducted himself with the utmost propriety. And he has the most fascinating stories.
I'd love to know how you and Sarah get along.
I know she extracts gossip from the servants, and she keeps prying into things. Sarah's ability to vanish whenever her mischief's discovered must come in handy, however, I'm sure.
I was thinking of Varric.
Oh, I could listen to his tales for hours. He actually let me read a chapter of his next book he's writing. My friends would be sick with envy if they knew. It's excellent, but a bit different from his past works. Only 3 beheadings so far.
Commander Cullen came to mind.
The commander is an intelligent, cautious man. I'm grateful he's in charge of our standing army. Still, he does sometimes resemble the man with a hammer to whom everything appears as a nail.
What do you think of Sir Blackwall?
Sir Blackwall seems as loyal to the purpose of the Inquisition as he is to the Wardens. His travels must have taken him strange places. I wish he'd speak more about them.
The Iron Bull has had to have made an impression.
He is a loud, unapologetic accident merely waiting to happen. I do wish he'd stop daring poor dignitaries to outdrink him.
I was thinking of Cassandra.
Seeker Pentagast is a princess of the Kingdom of Nevarra, although that barely seems important to her. She was not interested when I asked if we might make use of her royal relations. Still, the Inquisition would not have formed without Cassandra. She's an extraordinarily driven woman.
Let's speak later.
Goodbye.
If you find anything, please bring it in.
The veil holds no uncertainty for her, and she will know no fear.
I understand you were instrumental in garnering the assistance of the rebel mages. It is well done. And I pray this Inquisition fares better than the Chantry in its handling of magic.
We will try.
In some ways, Andraste had the simpler task. Magic should serve man, and not rule over him. That tells us what should be, but it does not tell us how to get there. So many times the methods of men have undone the spirit of their goals. Once you have sealed the breach, we shall see whether this Inquisition is truer to the Chantry, or its own namesake.
Farewell, revered mother.
Farewell.
Mages seem happier here without Templars.
Your open support for the mages likely earned you enemies. Our agents will monitor the situation. If the most opposed can be identified, we may still turn this to our advantage.
You're not planning assassinations, are you?
I was planning to unleash Josephine on them. She kills with kindness. Regardless, I applaud you for the courage to stand up for the mages.
In Redcliffe, You sacrificed yourself so that I could return here.
Of course I did. One small life in exchange for a second chance at history. I always loved a bargain.
You were condemned to a lightless dungeon. Not much of a life to sacrifice.
And I would do it again.
I'll leave you to your work.
The Inquisition supports free mages. What's next? Elves running Halam-Sharal? Cows milking farmers?
I take it you don't agree.
On the contrary, I approve. Heartily. I do wonder if you've considered what this support of yours will do. For mages in general, I mean. The Inquisition is seen as an authority. You've given southern mages license to, well, be like mages back home.
If that means they're anything like you, I approve.
Ha! There aren't many mages back home like me.
I'd believe that.
I never fit in. Bloodstains are so difficult to clean, you see.
So we're doomed to a future of blood magic, then?
Not at first. But you'd be a fool not to see where this could lead. Thing is, the Imperium was once just like the South. Templars, proper circles, all that rot. Then it changed. By inches. Not that this is reason to oppress us. Still, my homeland should be a cautionary tale, not a source of inspiration.
It occurs to me that I barely know anything about you.
Beyond my being a mage from Tevinter, you mean?
Beyond that, yes.
And beyond my being so charming and well-dressed, which is obvious to anyone.
I'm well aware of your finer qualities. Believe me.
Of course you are. You're a discerning and intelligent woman, after all. Now, what was I talking about? Ah, yes, me. I am the scion of House Parvis, a product of generations of careful breeding and the repository of its hopes and dreams. Naturally, I despised it all. The lies, the scheming, the illusions of supremacy. That's Tevinter in a nutshell, isn't it? Needless to say, my family was not happy with my choices.
What did you mean by generations of careful breeding?
The great families of Tevinter don't have children. They refine traits, weed out the undesirable, and promote the rest. My mother was chosen for my father because magic runs strongly in her blood. Never mind that they loathed each other. They wanted a son who could become Archon to make House Parvis the envy of the Imperium. They got me. A cautionary tale that you should be careful what you wish for.
Why would your family be upset with your choices?
Because I rejected their idyllic plan. If they had their way, by now I'd be married to some unlucky girl from a powerful family. We'd live in luxurious despair, despising each other as I waited to take my father's place in the magisterium. I declined the honor, and thus it's best I'm far from home. Less of an embarrassment that way, you see.
I'm getting the impression that you don't care much for your homeland.
On the contrary, I care for my homeland a great deal. There's so much potential. Sadly, we squander it. We refuse to acknowledge how far we've fallen because pretending is easier. We pretend the Qunari can be beaten. We pretend that we're superior to everyone, even our own people. Not everyone feels that way. I don't. Sadly, we're the minority.
Why remain with the Inquisition? Why not go back to Tevinter?
I'm not exactly welcome back home. Not that it matters, I'm quite accustomed to being a pariah. It adds to my charm. I can do more for Tevinter here. If the Venatori succeed, it'll set my homeland back 1,000 years. I'm sure some Magisters would disagree, but that's why we kill them.
I think I've heard enough.
That's too bad. I never tire of talking about myself.
I'd like to ask you about Tevinter.
Ah, yes. Everyone outside the Imperium always seems quite fascinated by it. Probably why they come up with so many ridiculous tales. Flying cows over Minrathous. That's madness. All right, that one's actually true, but the cows didn't have wings. I digress. Anything in particular you wanted to know?
Just how often is blood magic used there?
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
That's what any Magister would tell you. They'd be convincingly offended by the notion too. Of course, what people call blood magic here, and what we consider blood magic, are two different things.
What's considered actual blood magic in Tevinter?
Blood magic isn't inherently dangerous. Using your own blood or that of a willing participant, what's the harm? The problem is that what's permitted only gets you so much power. And what if you need more? You always need more. That's where we get into sacrifices and demon summoning. None of that is done. Not officially. Behind closed doors, it's a different story. Real blood magic can give you an edge, a leg up against your opponents. It's safe to assume that any mage of rank does it. The rest are quietly shut out of power, to put it bluntly.
You'd think the Templars would object.
I imagine they did, long ago. Once, their investigations might have been sincere. Then their balls were cut off. Too inconvenient. Nowadays, only the friendless are accused. Most of them probably innocent.
There must be some mages who oppose this.
Of course. I do. And I'm not entirely alone. Occasionally, there'll be a Magister who makes noise, and then the reform talk begins. All very patriotic. Meanwhile, that Magister will be quietly shunned. Chances are, surprise, it's learned he was a Maleficar all along. Most learn to keep quiet. Me? I enjoy the allure of pariahhood.
Anyone who talks about the Imperium mentions slavery. It's the center of the slave trade.
Ah. That is true.
And did you have slaves?
Not personally, but my family does and treats them well. Honestly, I never thought much about it until I came south. Back home, it's how it is. Slaves are everywhere. You don't question it. I'm not even certain many slaves do.
You think slaves like it that way? Don't be ridiculous.
I didn't say they like it. It's all most of them know. In the south, you have alienages, slums, both human and elven. The desperate have no way out. Back home, a poor man can sell himself. As a slave, he could have a position of respect, comfort, and could even support a family. Some slaves are treated poorly, it's true. But do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better?
I suppose not. No.
I don't know what it's like to be a slave, true. I never thought about it until I saw how different it was here. But I suspect you don't know either. Nor should you believe that every tale of Tevinter excess is the norm.
It seems strange that an entire empire would be ruled by mages.
strange? Why are you less qualified to rule than some tart with a fancy crown? Actually, the fiction in the Imperium is that mages don't rule. The Magisterium rules. That magisters are all mages is considered a convenient technicality.
What is the Magisterium, exactly?
The upper house of the Imperial Senate, and the only part worth having a seat on. Those seats are split among the circles of Magi, the Chantry, and the major families. All mages now. It's odd that outside the Imperium, you use Magister like it applies to every Tevinter mage.
If you're not a Magister, then what are you called? No special title?
I'm an Altus, which is almost as good as a Magister, depending on who you ask.
I've never heard of an Altus.
Upper class. Those families who trace descent from the Dreamers, the first prophets of the old gods. If you're a mage and you're not Altus, then you're later. Lower class. If you're not a mage at all, you're Soperati. That's everyone else. We do love our fancy words.
I thought the Archon ruled over the Imperium.
Well, yes. Technically, he can overrule laws passed by the Magisterium, but that never happens. Even so, he gets to appoint new Magisters, which means all the families vie madly for his favor. Thus, the Archon gets invited to all the parties. The truest path to Tevinter influence, let me tell you.
If it's a fiction, that means mages do rule then.
Yes and no. Let me put it this way. Mages do rule, but not all mages are equal. If you're not from the right family, chances are you don't rule anything. Maybe you're even a slave. The idea that anyone could be a mage, however, keeps the masses placated.
Can anyone be a mage?
Technically, the potential runs mostly in bloodlines, but it's been known to happen. More importantly, commoners believe it can. Tevinter legend is chock full of mage heroes from humble origins. So they hold out hope. Someday my son or my son's son will be a mage. Someday. Poor sods don't realize that means he'll be a quaestor at the arse end of the 100 Pillars, at best.
Being a quaestor isn't a good thing.
I imagine the average non-mage likes to think so. Counting numbers and shuffling papers all day is better than many occupations after all. If you're a second-class citizen among a pack of piranha, however, your outlook changes.
Let me ask you something else.
Of course.
There's an Imperial Chantry, isn't there? With its own divine.
You people aren't supposed to talk about the Black Divine, are you? If you mention him outside the Imperium, people make that face, like you're urinating in public. But yes, we do have the Chantry, or a version of it. Night and day comparing it to yours.
Do you really call him the Black Divine?
We don't call him that, oh no. In the Imperium, he's the true divine. The woman sitting on the Sunburst throne is some backwater pretender. It all stems from a disagreement over Andraste. Marvelous, isn't it?
Why would they disagree over Andraste?
It's not my field of expertise, but the Imperium believes Andraste was a mortal woman, a mage. Down south, they say, no, she's the bride of the Maker, ascended to his side, divine provenance, a blah blah blah. We feel better believing Andraste was one of us. Makes executing her less damning, you see. So we elected a man as divine, the South declared war, and we've been feuding cousins ever since.
So, the Imperial Divine is always a man?
All the better to distinguish him from that other one, yes. Don't think there aren't a number of female magisters who bristle at that. Why can't they be divine after all? Same reason you never see a man on the Sunburst throne. Because that's how it's always been done. Excellent reasoning.
Is the Imperial Chantry so different from ours?
Not in theory. The main difference is in the whole magic is meant to serve man, not rule over him business. Back home, ruling the unwashed masses is serving them, for the good of the Imperium. Perhaps it started with good intentions, but these days it's academic. The circles are in command.
There are circles of magi in the Imperium.
We don't have dismal little mage prisons, if that's what you mean. They're academies, prestigious ones. We have Templars as well, but they don't cancel spells or whatever your Templars do. They're soldiers.
They don't use lyrium.
Ha! As if there'd be any left for them. They watch for abuse of magic, yes, but only those who are weak or who fall out of favor get dealt with. Mostly they enforce the Magisterium's edicts. The Chantry smiles and nods from the sidelines.
Do you consider yourself Andrastian?
Ah. The big question. It might surprise you that I do consider myself Andrastian. I simply do not believe in the Chantry. It is a relic, whether back home or here in the south. Something from a bygone age desperately clinging to relevance. It's not an opinion that makes me popular.
I share your opinion, actually.
That's not surprising, considering what the Inquisition represents. I'll say this. I may not believe in the Chantry, but I believe in you.
In me?
That the Maker sent you, whether through Andraste or fate. Cassandra is not wrong. You are what we needed most at the moment we needed it. That's what they will say in ages to come.
That's true. I feel the same.
My, someone's full of themselves, aren't they?
I was just agreeing with you.
Don't agree on my account. A little doubt wouldn't harm the Herald of Andraste. Me? I've seen too much to believe I know everything. The world is bigger than I. Even bigger than you. It laughs at all the things we think we know. The Maker doesn't need me to believe. But I do. The thought of no one at all watching out for us is too frightening.
Let me ask you something else.
So many questions.
I'm wondering if the Imperium would be a useful ally.
I'd think you'd be more concerned whether or not they'd support the Venatori. They won't, of course. At least, not officially. They'll disavow all knowledge of dangerous cultists. Secretly, many Magisters will rejoice at the idea. And if the South falls to chaos in the meantime, all the better.
It would be in the Imperium's best interest to help. Surely it could use allies.
I think the Imperium gave up on the idea of allies a long time ago. We've been fighting the Qunari for what, 200 years off and on? It's a point of pride that we go it alone. They'll sneer at the South behind their silk handkerchiefs and say, "You've had it easy for far too long." Let's not forget that the Inquisition seems to be an arm of the Orlesian Chantry. Anathema so far as they're concerned.
We're not part of the Chantry. The Chantry opposed the Inquisition's formation.
You think that matters? Don't be silly. The Herald of Andraste. Your very title smacks of the Southern Chantry. You may as well be a heathen. I think they're far more frightened what you'll do if you succeed.
That's all I wanted to know.
Fair enough.
Have you gone to see Alexius yet? He's in the cells.
Not yet, no. I saw him before they locked him up. He looked despondent, broken. Not the man I remember, nor the one I want to. I suppose the Inquisition will judge him eventually. I wonder if there's any chance they'll show him mercy. He hardly deserves it, but for Felix's sake. I can't help hoping there's something left of the man I once knew. So I take it you're Dalish? Is that the correct word here?
Yes, that's right.
We don't have Dalish clans coming northward, for obvious reasons. So I've never met one of your people before, although I've heard about them. Little. I hope this won't be an issue between us. I am here to help you deal with the Venatori, after all.
And I appreciate your help, Dorian.
Excellent. Mutual appreciation is a grand way to begin.
I should go.
Try not to die. I would notice you were gone. Questions.
I should go.
Naturally.
So we have gained the mages. Excellent. They should be able to seal the breach. You are certain you experienced time travel. Could it have been an illusion? A trick of the Fade?
I know what I saw. It was real.
What? So we have gained the mages. Excellent. They should be able to seal the breach. You are certain you experienced time travel. Could it have been an illusion? A trick of the Fade?
Dorian was sure. Impossible.
So we have gained the mages. Excellent. They should be able to seal the breach. You are certain you experienced time travel. Could it have been an illusion? A trick of the Fade?
I've been to the Fade before. I'd know it.
Point taken. What an amazing gift. It is vital the Inquisition succeed to avoid the future you witnessed.
Most people have trouble wrapping their heads around the idea.
I'm not most people.
I appreciate you talking with me about it. And not being most people.
If you wish me to speak of Elysian fashion, I may be at a loss. Magical surprises I can handle. Speaking of which, you should ready yourself.
For?
This Elder One. You have now interfered with his plans twice. Once at the Temple of Sacred Ashes, and now again at Redcliffe. A being who aspires to godhood is unlikely to ignore such an affront. Lethalan.
We'll talk later.
Goodbye.
A learned child is a blessing upon his parents and onto the Maker.
He'll be an asset. Well, that's mages all over. So many robes, I bet all of Ferelden lost their curtains. I'll just be the other side of Haven, just in case.
Do you have a problem with our new allies? With mages?
No problem with mages. You're fine, right? My problem is magic. If mages sat on their hands, everything would be fine. I mean, yay, freedom. Great for them. Over there, away from me.
I'll be back if I need you.
Go on.
Can I get you anything?
Farewell.
Goodbye.
The Mage Rebellion joins the Inquisition. I've got to admit that's a twist I didn't see coming. One thing you saw in the future worries me. I mean, it was all bad. But red lyrium in Ferelden, infecting people and growing out of them, that's bad. Finding more of it really punches a hole in my red lyrium at the temple was a coincidence theory.
How long does it take for red lyrium to grow? How fast can it spread?
It took years to infect people in Kirkwall, but no one there was actually ingesting the stuff. This Elder One managed to take the worst thing I can think of and make it worse. That's an accomplishment.
We can't leave a single piece of that lyrium out in the wild.
I'm with you on that. I've got people trying to find out where the red stuff came from. I think maybe we should make that a priority. But that's enough doom and gloom. You just won a big victory for the Inquisition. What are you going to do to celebrate?
That's a good point. We should celebrate. A banquet. Something like a banquet.
Word to Josephine, and I bet she could arrange anything. Things should be calm around here for at least the next hour. Take a moment to enjoy it. If the world's about to end, I'm sure the Seeker will let us know. Need something?
Carry on.
Flissa asked me to bring some food along for you and your boy.
are a good rider under all that fog.
Thank you. Kindly.
well.
never going to be an easy answer to the mage dilemma. What you did for the mages took courage. You gave them a chance. Everyone deserves one. Something on your mind?
What do you think of the Inquisition?
You already know what I think of your forces. I'm not sure what else there is to say.
We should return to our duties.
As you wish. You are, after all, in charge.
So, that Tevinter guy sent you into the future?
If you're worried about magic, I can protect you.
My blade pretty much protects me.
Perhaps I can do things your blade can't.
I don't know. It has blood grooves. Well, technically, it's the Fuller, but blood grooves sound so much more violent. Anyway, I hope our new friends have what it takes to close the breach. Damn thing gives me a headache just looking at it. So, that Tevinter guy sent you into the future?
I've got no problem with normal magic, but Tevinter goes beyond all reason.
I know, right? The Vints are always pushing. Anyway, I hope our new friends have what it takes to close the breach. Damn thing gives me a headache just looking at it. How's it going?
See you later, Bull.
See ya.
And what are we supposed to do, exactly?
What you always do. Complain.
We've already spoken with Commander Cullen. No one listens. We want better quarters. We want the Templars kept at a distance. And some respect for...
This is not the Circle. You mages are our allies, not our wards. Act like it.
How are we supposed to...
Deal with it. It never ends, evidently.
You don't need to tell me that.
I just don't know who told them I'm the one to yell at.
Is it that bad?
The mages are here as equals. They need to get used to what that means. It is your doing, after all. You created this alliance.
Well, I hope it works. What other choice do we have?
Oh. I do sound like I'm blaming you, don't I? I don't disapprove. In fact, you did well. You made a decision when it needed to be made. And here we are. I wish I could say this was my doing.
You're flattering me.
I'm not. This always happens. Nobody ever takes my meaning.
You should see your face.
I'm thinking less flattering things now. Let's hope the breach has your sense of humor. It never ends, evidently.
Fighting with them will only make them more stubborn.
The mages are here as equals. It is your doing, after all. You created this alliance.
You would have done differently, I suppose.
Oh. I do sound like I'm blaming you, don't I? And here we are. I wish I could say this was my doing.
We wouldn't be here at all if you hadn't stood up against the Chantry.
You're being kind.
You're discounting your role in this.
Let's close the breach. Then we can say how successful I was. Do you need something?
Can you tell me more about...
I'll tell you what I can.
I've no more questions.
The mages are ready to approach the breach. I pray this will be enough to close it.
Who have taken his gift and turned it against his children.
You weren't happy with how I brought in the mages. Do you have a problem with me as well?
Of course not. I have no intention of endangering your alliance, but I must ensure the safety of those here. That concern extends to the mages. They are putting themselves at risk for the Inquisition, as are you. Any precautions taken are meant to aid you, nothing more. I hope you will accept them as such.
That's all for now.
I'm sure you have other matters to attend.
Mercenary band.
To them, the Golden City, the center of all creation. And for a time you dwelled among them, watched over them, as a gardener watches the earth.
Lady Lavellen, on behalf of the Inquisition.
What a pleasure to meet you, my lady. Seeing the same faces at every event becomes so tiresome. So you must be a guest of Madame de Fer, or are you here for Duc Bastien?
Are you here on business? I have heard the most curious tales of you. I cannot imagine half of them are true.
What have you heard about me?
Some say that when the veil opened, Andraste herself delivered you from the Fade.
I'm not familiar with that name. I was invited here by First Enchanter Vivienne.
Madame de Fer is a fond nickname the court has given Lady Vivienne.
I've heard she finds it amusing.
I've heard very little about Duc Bastien.
He hasn't been seen much at court lately.
His business with the Council of Heralds often takes him from home for long periods. It can't be good for a man of his years.
And of course, there's the Civil War. Bastien probably wishes to distance himself from the actions of his one-time son-in-law.
Tearing up the Dales in a foolish bid for power? It will end in disgrace for Gaspard. Everyone knows it.
Some of those storytellers may have gotten carried away.
But only for the best effect. The Inquisition is a ripe subject for wild tales.
The Inquisition. What a lot of pig shit. Washed up sisters and crazed seekers. No one can take them seriously. Everyone knows it's just an excuse for a bunch of political outcasts to grab power.
I saved the city of Redcliffe and brought the mages to order.
Saving dog lords and bringing their beasts to heel is hardly an accomplishment. We know what your Inquisition truly is. If you were a woman of honor, you'd step outside and answer the charges.
My dear Marquis, how unkind of you to use such language in my house to my guests. You know such rudeness is intolerable.
Madame Vivienne, I humbly beg your pardon.
You should. Whatever am I going to do with you, my dear? My lady, you're the wounded party in this unfortunate affair. What would you have me do with this foolish, foolish man?
I think the Marquis has seen the error of his ways.
By the grace of Andraste, you have your life, my dear. Do be more careful with it. I'm delighted you could attend this little gathering. I've so wanted to meet you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Vivienne, First Enchanter of Montsimard, and Enchantress to the Imperial Court.
Is that Marquis going to pose a problem?
His aunt is the Vicomtesse of Mont de Glace. Not a powerful family, but well respected. And very devout. Alphonse will be disowned for this. It's not the first time he's brought his aunt disgrace, but I'm sure it'll be the last. And after such a public humiliation, I expect he'll run off to the Dales to join the Empress's war effort. Either to make a good end, or to win back a modicum of self-respect.
Your salon has certainly exceeded my expectations so far.
I'm glad to keep you entertained, my dear. I wanted to meet face to face. It is important to consider one's connections carefully. With Divine Justinia dead, the Chantry's in shambles. And you seem to have won over the fractious rebel mages. I didn't think such a thing was possible. As the leader of the last loyal mages of Thedas, I feel it only right that I lend my assistance to your cause.
What exactly can you do for the Inquisition?
I am well versed in the politics of the Orlesian Empire. I know every member of the Imperial Court personally. I have all the resources remaining to the Circle at my disposal. And I'm a mage of no small talent. Will that do?
Does that mean you'd be aiding the Inquisition from the Imperial Palace?
Ordinarily, I would be happy to serve as liaison to the court, but these are not ordinary times. The veil has been ripped apart and there is a hole in the sky. It is now the duty of every mage to work towards sealing the breach. And so I would join the Inquisition on the field of battle.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas, of course. We have not forgotten the commandment, as some have, that magic exists to serve man. I support any effort to restore such order.
You don't much care for the rebels, I take it. Are you aware they've been offered an alliance?
With proper guidance from the Inquisition, I think my colleagues will return to their senses. Surely they will have to realize that their rebellion endangers everyone.
What's in this for you?
The same thing anyone gets by fighting this chaos. The chance to meet my enemy, to decide my fate. I won't wait quietly for destruction.
Are you devout? What's your opinion of the Chantry?
I was a great admirer of the late divine Justinia V. The Chantry, at its best, unites the disparate cultures of Thedas and looks after its most vulnerable. Had she lived, Justinia could have accomplished so much.
You are aware that the Chantry hasn't sanctioned this Inquisition?
The Chantry is leaderless. They're in no position to officially sanction anything. Besides, my dear, if there is one virtue the Chant of Light teaches us, it is forgiveness. Once the Inquisition has sealed the breach, I'm sure the new Divine will not care in the slightest about official permission.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas, of course. We have not... I support any effort to restore such order.
Is your interest in the Inquisition Madame de Fer, or is it more personal?
Aren't you charming? It's professional, of course.
The Inquisition will be happy to have you, Lady Vivian.
Great things are beginning, my dear. I can promise you that.
Do you need something?
That's enough for now.
Another time, then.
Another time, then. Need something? Looks fine. That'll do. You need some... You need something? Let me...
when there was no sky maker. When there was no earth, you were the earth. When there was nothing, you were everything. Magic exists to serve man and never.
Go in peace, Herald of Andraste.
If Fiona and her malcontents are joining us as allies, we need to be prepared. Abominations are inevitable. Cullen doesn't have enough Templars to handle incidents. Some of the rank and file need to be trained.
The last thing we need are abominations running amok.
It's good to see someone with an understanding of the situation. I'll have a word with Cullen. We are reliant on his people, absolutely. There has never been a greater threat to mages than the Breach. Until it is closed, no one is safe.
You have a low opinion of your fellow mages.
It's not so much an opinion as grasping the obvious. Magic is dangerous, just as fire is dangerous. Anyone who forgets this truth gets burned.
I don't think the mages of the Imperium would agree with you.
Drunkards rarely agree that they ought to stop drinking. I wouldn't use them as role models. Do you know how young mages are found? A little girl has a nightmare, and in her sleep, she burns her house down. A teenage boy has a fit, and lightning rips his mother to pieces. You know how these stories go. Perhaps you lived one. People don't learn the fear of magic at Chantry services, my dear. They learn it from us. Tell me something. As you will no doubt have a hand in shaping it, what future do you see for mages?
The circle has to be restored if we want to keep the peace.
That's comforting to hear, but you'll find opposition to the idea even among friends. It's something to consider, my dear.
Make her watch over you.
If Fiona and her malcontents are joining us as allies, we need to be prepared. Cullen doesn't have enough Templars to handle incidents. Some of the rank and file need to be trained.
Train our people, but keep it a secret. Let the mages think they're not being watched.
I like the way you think, darling. I'll have a word with Cullen. We are reliant on his people. There has never been a greater threat to mages than the Breach. Until it is closed, no one is safe. It's not... Magic is dangerous, just as fire is dangerous. Anyone who forgets this truth gets burned.
You're preaching to the choir, Vivian.
Tell me something. As you will no doubt have a hand in shaping it, what future do you see for mages?
The circle has to be restored if we want to keep the peace.
That's comforting to hear, but you'll find opposition to the idea even among friends. It's something to consider, my dear. You've never been to a circle, as far as I can tell, yet you're remarkably skilled. Were you self-taught?
I figured out enough on my own.
You're fortunate to be a quick learner. In my own experience, nothing is more deadly to a young maid, What do you imagine will happen if the circles are not restored? Do you foresee the Dalish taking us all under their wing?
The Circle had plenty...
I wish more people just in... Mages, Templars, innocent people of all kinds now look to the Inquisition to decide their fate.
I'll try...
Failure is a luxury we... For almost 1,000 years, and now many believe you are the agent of his will. Whatever the truth is, that belief gives you power.
I was given this blessing, but...
We can only hope I've stopped... You've never been to a circle, as far as I can tell, yet you're remarkably skilled. Were you self-taught?
The Dalish have their own traditions, you know. The Circle isn't the only authority on magic.
I have heard about the traditions of magic among the Dalish keepers, but it's all What do you imagine will happen if the circles are not restored?
The Circle
Mages, Templars, innocent people of all kinds now look to the
That's why you wanted to be here. To have a hand in deciding.
Wouldn't you? And now many believe you are the agent of his will. Whatever the truth is, that belief gives you power.
If that's true, then I'll put it to good use.
You've never been to a circle, as far as I can tell, yet you're remarkably skilled. Were you self-taught?
Not at all. I studied magic with Keeper Deshana.
I have heard about the traditions of magic among the Dalish keepers, but it's all third-hand. In my own experience, nothing is more deadly to a young mage than a lack of knowledge, which makes the current state of things precarious. What do you imagine will happen if the circles are not restored? Do you foresee the Dalish taking us all under their wing?
The Circle had plenty of problems, but it's an institution we sorely need.
I wish more people understood the truth of this. Justinia's death has shattered the balance of power in Thedas. If it is not restored quickly, countless lives will be lost. Mages, Templars, innocent people of all kinds now look to the Inquisition to decide their fate.
I'll try not to let them down.
Failure is a luxury we cannot afford, my dear. For almost 1,000 years, the world believed it was in the hands of the Maker. And now many believe you are the agent of his will. Whatever the truth is, that belief gives you power.
Once this is over, the task of speaking for the Maker will be the Chantry's problem again.
That's reassuring to hear. I've stolen enough of your time, my dear. Don't let me keep you. How may I help you?
Do you think that you and I might someday...
Of course not, my dear. There's no advantage to such an arrangement. Did you need something, darling?
Do you think that you and I might someday...
My dear, you are delightful, but that's quite impossible. How may I help you?
What are your thoughts about the others in the Inquisition?
Blackwall is a useful sort of fellow, but he's perhaps too eager to please. He reminds me of a pup begging for attention. Did you need something, darling?
I wanted to ask you about the Circle of Magi.
Of course. What do you wish to know?
If the Circle disbanded, how can you still belong to it?
The Circle is an idea, my dear. And an idea cannot be dissolved. Many of the first enchanters voted for rebellion, caring little that anything short of a unanimous decision would pit mage against mage. Rather than dissolving it, Grand Enchanter Fiona's vote split the Circle in two. The rebels follow her, the loyalists follow me.
If you led all the loyalists, why are you only First Enchanter and not Grand Enchanter?
Grand Enchanters are elected, and since there are no First Enchanters besides myself, no vote can be held. I could name myself Grand Enchanter, but the title holds no meaning now. When the circles are restored, that will change.
What was it like to live in a circle?
My dear, your question is the root of all problems with mages. I cannot tell you. Every circle was different. Their Templars were different, their politics unique. And every person within each tower had an experience of circle life unique to themselves. Some people suffered and some were content. Some were cruel, some compassionate, and some indifferent. The same is true of people everywhere, in all circumstances, whether they are mages or not.
So tell me about your personal experience with the Circle.
I enjoyed life in the Montsimard Circle, my dear. It was an edifice devoted to knowledge and refinement. And there is comfort to be had, you know, in the company of fellow mages. Those born without magic will never truly understand us.
You must have been under constant supervision, being forced by Templars to live in the tower. Was that hard to endure?
My dear, I have a suite in the palace and a wing at my dear Duke Bastien's estate. I've never been forced to live anywhere. Most circles allowed mages to live away from the tower, either on their own or in service to the nobility. All that was required was permission from the First Enchanter. Some circles were harsher in their restrictions. Kirkwall was the worst, but it was the exception. Most were quite permissive. Perhaps too permissive, in retrospect.
How did we come to this state with the circles in revolt?
A failure of perspective that infected circle leadership. Mages lived solely in a world of Templars and mages. They could not even imagine what was beyond the tower walls. Kirkwall gave the world a reason to remember its fear of magic. A mage killed hundreds with a snap of their fingers. Across Thedas, a new tangible fear of magic grew. Commoners and nobles alike called out to the Chantry for protection. But the malcontents in the towers thought nothing of this. They cared only for themselves and for their anger at the new Templar restrictions. When a mage attempted to assassinate Divine Justinia, again, the mages protested the investigation. The leadership chose to vote on independence based on the intolerable conditions imposed by the Templars, sparing no thought to the fact that magic was more feared in the aftermath of these attacks than it had been since Tevinter's day. So long as they had their freedom, they could care little for riots, angry mobs, or about pitting mages against each other.
Are you familiar with Grand Enchanter Fiona?
We've met. Before her horrendously ill-timed and selfish vote for independence, I thought her adequate at her job. In her dotage, she could not handle looking after the well-being of so many people. We would have done better to replace her years ago, to let her spend time gardening.
Did they have cause to rebel?
In the aftermath of their terrorist attacks? Was that really the most opportune time to break away? By all means, protest abuses by the Templars. Just don't do it in a way that says mages support wholesale murder. By voting when they did, my colleagues all but declared war upon the ordinary people of Thedas. A war in which we are outnumbered 100 to 1.
I thought the fighting was only between mages and Templars. Why are mages fighting mages?
The vote for independence was carried by only a small margin. but Fiona chose to let the motions stand. Those who opposed a rash declaration of war against the entire free world had little choice. By breaking from the Chantry when they did, the rebels declared themselves in support of mass murder. Anyone who did not wish to support terrorism and the slaughter of innocents was forced to take arms against the rebels. Did you need something, darling?
Do you think that you and I might someday...
My dear, you are delightful, but that's quite impossible. Did you need something, darling?
I wanted to ask you about the
Of course. What do you wish to know?
You must have an opinion of the Templars after living so long in the Circle.
Having opinions about Templars, my dear, is exactly like having opinions about mages or Navarrans or men. I have known some who were impossible to endure and some who were utterly charming. I have suffered insults at the hands of those in the armor, but no more than I endured from nobles or tradesmen in Val Royaux. Personally, I have found the Templars a useful tool, skilled at keeping more unpleasant elements at bay. How may I help you?
I'd like to know more about you, Madame Vivienne.
Whatever would you like to know?
Your accent's not Orlesian. Where exactly are you from?
I am from the Circle, my dear. One's country of origin rarely matters there. But if you must know, I was born in Wycombe in the Free Marches. I was sent to the Ostwick Circle, but I transferred to Monsignor while still an apprentice.
I'm curious how a Circle mage winds up a courtier.
Nobody winds up at court, my dear. It takes a great deal of effort to arrive there. I caught the eye of Duke Bastien de Ghislaine, an advantageous connection that opened many doors. When the position of Enchanter to the Imperial Court became vacant, I was able to secure it.
You're married to the Duke de Ghislaine?
Of course not, my dear. Don't be ridiculous. Marriage is the business of alliance and inheritance. I'm Bastien's mistress.
What duties does a court enchanter have?
I am tasked with providing assistance to the Empress on arcane matters. Most of my predecessors restricted this to lighting lamps and doing parlor tricks. In such troubled times as these, however, I provide political advice to Her Majesty on the subject of the Mage Rebellion.
Do you think that you and I might someday...
My dear, you are delightful, but that's quite impossible. How may I help you?
I'd like to know more...
Whatever would you like to know?
I'm curious how a
Nobody... I caught... When the position of Enchanter to the Imperial Court became vacant,
You're married to...
Marriage is the business of alliance and inheritance. I'm Bastien's mistress.
And what does the Duchess de Ghislaine think of this arrangement?
We got along quite well. Duchess Nicoline and I used to host musical salons together. She was a great patron of the arts. She passed away from a fever a few years ago, the poor dear. Do you need something, my dear?
Is there anything I can do to help your efforts at restoring the Circle?
After the Circles fell, their libraries were plundered by scavengers. 1,000 years of recorded knowledge in the hands of bandits. It makes me sick to think of it. I've received news that some tomes have been located, if you are interested in righting this wrong.
I'll look into it for you.
If you can take care of this matter, the Circle would be in your debt. How may I help you?
Do you think that you and I might someday...
Of course not, my dear. There's no advantage to such an arrangement.
Thank you for all that you are doing to help.
Vale holds no uncertainty for her, and she will...
What do you mean? Something like that.
What do you need?
There's rumors.
It's good
You
to
all
have
right, sir?
commerce restored.
Of course.
I've many goods here in Egypt to trade.
Intra Forza.